The 2,000-degree roar of the furnace is the only thing that silences my father's voice in my head. My name is Emily Carter, and for my entire life I've been the dirty hobbyist, while my sister was the perfect partner. They thought I was a failure. They didn't know I was standing in the multi-million-dollar foundry I built in secret. Then I got the text. I was uninvited from Thanksgiving. I wasn't classy enough for their new high-status life. They were about to learn that the unpresentable daughter they cut off was the only one who could afford to buy the whole table. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We always appreciate the time you spent here with us. The air in the foundry thrums with a living heat. The propane torch in my hand hisses a sharp blue needle of flame I play across the joint. Above that, the constant bass note roar of the glory hole, a 2,000-degree portal of churning orange that turns the air around it to liquid. This is my world. The Blackwood Foundry, a resurrected 19th-century ironworks, all brick and steel and soot. It's my sanctuary, my secret. I wipe a stray strand of hair from my face, leaving a streak of grime across my cheek. I'm coated in it, the grit and sweat of the work, and I've never felt cleaner. I check the temperature, brace my core, and plunge the blowpipe into the furnace's heart, gathering a glowing molten orb of glass. The first gather. This piece will be massive, a twisting vortex of cobalt and smoke, and it requires all of me. My forearm tightens as I turn the heavy pipe, pulling a long-heeled scar taut. It's a silvery white line, a mistake from my apprenticeship, a kiss from a piece of hot glass. It always stings in the heat, and it always brings back the memory. 5 years ago. A different studio, a different life. A cramped rented garage bay that smelled of damp concrete and failing equipment. The main furnace, my crucible, had a spiderweb crack running down its side, a fatal flaw. I was sitting on a dusty, upturned bucket, my phone pressed so hard to my ear it hurt. I was desperate. "Dad, I just need $5,000, I pleaded, my voice thin, cracking just like the crucible. The main furnace it's broken. It's my whole studio. Dad, please. I'm so close." I heard him sigh on the other end, that familiar sound of deep, profound disappointment. It was the sound that defined my entire life. Emily, Mark Carter said, and the jovial tone he saved for clients and my sister was gone, replaced by a cold, weary flatness. "When are you going to give up this hobby? It's dirty. It's not a career. It's playing with fire in a shed." I tried to interject to tell him about the gallery show, the small commission I'd just landed, but he rolled right over me. "Your sister just made junior partner at her firm. That's a career. She has a 401k. She has polish. Why can't you just be practical? Why do you always have to choose the hard, dirty path hobby?" The word struck me dumb. It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. This thing I bled for, the art that lived in my lungs and under my fingernails, was just a childish pastime. "It's not a hobby," I whispered, but the line was already dead. He'd hung up. The click was so final. I slid off the bucket and onto the cold, dusty floor of my failing studio, surrounded by my failing equipment. I didn't just cry. I felt something inside me collapse. My family, my father Mark, my mother Sarah, my perfect older sister Jessica, didn't just misunderstand my life. They were ashamed of it. I was the art school black sheep, the unpresentable daughter who brought calloused, dirty hands to their clean suburban Thanksgivings. They wanted a lawyer, a consultant, something clean. I gave them a Smith. I'm back in the present, the molten glass on my pipe glowing with the heat of a small sun. I breathe center myself and walk the pipe to the bench, rolling it, shaping it, my focus, absolute. That phone call was the end. It was also the beginning. That night 5 years ago, in a fit of grief and white-hot rage, I took the last of my glass, fired up the cracked crucible, and worked until dawn. I didn't make something pretty. I made the truth. I made a sculpture of a human heart encased in what looked like a solid block of ice, but seen from the right angle, it was fractured from within the light, catching 1,000 internal breaks. I called it Hobby. I sent a photo to an obscure international arts journal, a last desperate flare sent up from a sinking ship. 2 months later, an email. Antoine Dubois. The Antoine Dubois, the architect who designed buildings that looked like they belonged on another planet, had seen it. He didn't just buy Hobby, he flew to my garage. He stood in the damp, oily space, looked at my cracked furnace and my desperate sketches and saw me. He saw the work. He didn't commission a piece. He commissioned an installation. A 40-foot floor-to-ceiling glass and steel living sculpture for the lobby of his new flagship hotel in Dubai. The contract was for $4.2 million. I never told them. I took the money, disappeared from the family radar under the guise of an extended apprenticeship, and bought this place, the derelict Blackwood Ironworks. I spent 2 years bringing it back from the dead, restoring the 19th century brick, installing state-of-the-art furnaces, building my empire of glass and steel in secret. My hobby had bought me a fortress. I finish the first shape and swing the piece into the annealer, a massive temperature-controlled oven where it will cool for 3 days. I kill the torch, and the sudden quiet of the studio rings in my ears, replaced by the distant roar of the main furnace. I pull off my heavy Kevlar gloves and walk out of the hot shop into the grand hall. It's vast. The ceiling soars 60 feet up to the original iron trusses. At the far end, a massive 30-foot oak dining table, currently empty, sits in front of a hearth I could stand up in. My footsteps echo on the polished concrete floor. This is the room I built for them. I've pictured it 1,000 times, my family walking in for Christmas. I imagine their faces pale with shock. I imagine my father Mark trying to find words, his practical, ordered world completely shattered. I imagine him finally looking at me, really looking at me and seeing a success, seeing someone worthy. I imagine after 30 years finally being seen. The fantasy is so clear, so sharp, it makes my chest ache. I'm still that kid holding up a drawing, desperate for a pat on the head. On a dusty workbench near the door, my phone, a black slab of glass and metal, buzzes. It's a vibration I feel more than hear, a tremor in the quiet. A new text. It's from my mother. I wipe my sooty hands on a coarse cotton rag, the fibers catching on the calluses of my palms. I walk over to the workbench, the phone still vibrating, insistent buzzing against the scarred wood. I pick it up. A text from my mother, Sarah. My chest gives that familiar, stupid little lurch of hope before I even read it. Maybe she's just checking in. Maybe she wants to finalize Christmas plans. I tap the screen, the light bright in the cavernous, dim hall. The message glows. Hi, sweetheart. Just so you know, we're keeping Thanksgiving very small this year. Jess and David are hosting at their new country club. It's just us and David's senior partners. You understand? We'll see you at Christmas. I read it twice. Then a third time, the words blurring the air in my lungs, turning sharp and cold. Very small. Just us. But just us, plus David's senior partners. The math doesn't work. Just us is supposed to mean the core family. But I'm not included in just us. I'm the part that gets subtracted when senior partners are added. The wound from the phone call 5 years ago, the hobby wound, doesn't just ache, it tears wide open. This isn't a family holiday. It's a networking event, a performance. And I am, as I've always been, the unpresentable daughter. The girl with the soot on her face and the dirty hands who doesn't fit the classy atmosphere of a country club. You understand? It's not a question. It's a command. A dismissal. I look up from the glowing screen. My gaze travels across the vast, empty expanse of the grand hall. It lands on the 30-foot oak table, empty, waiting. It lands on the massive, cold hearth, big enough to roast an ox. My beautiful, stupid fantasy of a joyful Christmas reveal of my father's stunned admiration cracks and shatters like cooling glass. It's gone. And the ache, The familiar childish sorrow drains away with it, replaced by something new. It isn't the hot, roaring rage of the furnace. It's a cold, clean click. The sound of a heavy lock tumbler falling perfectly into place. Small, I whisper to the empty hall. I look at the table that could seat 40. They want classy. A new idea, sharp and dangerous and perfectly formed, crystallizes in my mind. My thumb moves cold and steady. I open my contacts. I scroll past Dad, past Mom, past Jess. I scroll until I find Uncle Leo, my father's brother, the family black sheep, a loud, loving bear of a man, a construction foreman who wears flannel and steel-toed boots, and always asked to see my latest work. He was the one who, when I was 16, looked at a clumsy glass bird I'd made and said, "Hellum, you didn't just make a bird, you caught the light." He consequently was always the first person politely excluded from nice family events. I press the call button. He picks up on the second ring, his voice a familiar, cheerful boom that echoes slightly in my phone. You won't believe the email your mother sent me. I tell you, Sarah's getting fancier than a $3 steak. My grip tightens on the phone, my knuckles white. What email, Uncle Leo? Oh, the uninvitation, he laughs, but it's a strained sound, the humor paper thin over the hurt. Got politely booted from Thanksgiving. Said they're trying to cultivate what was the word? A high-status atmosphere for David's firm. Guess my stories about the I-90 overpass job don't quite make the cut for the A-list this year, huh? It's just the important folks. High-status atmosphere. The A-list. The words echo in the cavernous hall. We weren't just excluded, we were filtered. We were the chaff. A smile touches my lips, but it's not a warm one. It's the smile of an artist who just found the perfect, flawed, beautiful piece of scrap to build around. Good, I say, and my voice is steady as steel. Good kid. I just got canned from Turkey Day. Change of plans, Uncle Leo. How do you feel about the Berkshires for Thanksgiving? The Berkshires, and that's a hell of a drive, and I can't. I have a new place. I cut him off, my voice warm now but firm as iron. A new studio, and I'm sending a car, a black one. It'll be at your house Wednesday at noon. Pack your good boots. There's a stunned silence on the line. Are you serious? A car? What's going on? I'm setting a new table, Uncle Leo, and you're at the head of it. See you Wednesday. I hang up before he can argue. My heart is hammering not with sorrow but with purpose. The furnace roars in the next room, feeding my resolve. I stare at the phone. They want an A-list, I say to the shadows and the steel. I'll give them the R list, the real list. My fingers are already flying, scrolling to the next name. I hang up from Leo, the silence of the grand hall roaring in my ears. The cold, hard purpose is thrumming in my veins. This isn't just a party. It's a reclamation. I go to war. My phone is my weapon. I scroll to P. Mrs. Petrov, my old high school art teacher. She was the one who saw the fire in me before I even knew what glassblowing was. She was the one who fought the school board to let me build a tiny makeshift kiln in the corner of the art room. She's retired now, widowed, living on a pension in a tiny apartment 2 hours away. I press the call. Her voice is thin, papery, but brightens when she hears my name. Emily Carter. My goodness, what a ghost. I read about that award you won in Venice, dear. I clipped it out. My throat tightens. She clipped it out. Mrs. P. I say, my voice suddenly thick. It's Emily. What are you doing for Thanksgiving? A sigh. Oh, you know, dear. Just a quiet day. Probably just a movie and a small... No. I cut in, but my voice is gentle. That won't do. Not this year. I have a new studio I want you to see. Oh, Emily, that's so sweet, but the drive... A car will be at your apartment on Wednesday at 4, a black one. It will bring you straight here. I'm not asking Mrs. P, I'm telling. I need you to see it. I hear a small, shaky breath. Oh my. Well, in that case, yes, dear. I'd love to. One down. I hang up and immediately dial M. Cousin Maya, my mother's sister's daughter. Maya is loud, chaotic, and wonderful with 3 kids under 10 who are just as loud and just as wonderful. Kids my sister Jess always refers to as disruptive and a handful, ensuring they're always seated at a separate wobbly card table at Christmas. She picks up sounding harassed. Hey, you going to the classy giving at the country club? Cut, I say. You too. Yep, got the email from Aunt Sarah, said it was a formal setting and, quote, not really suitable for the children's energy levels. We're disruptive, Em. Good, I say, a savage grin spreading across my face. How fast can you pack? I've got a place. The Foundry. It has a media room, a dedicated climbing wall, and 100 acres of woods to get lost in. Let them be disruptive. Maya gasps. Are you kidding, a climbing wall? And what are you? I'm sending a car, Maya. A big one. Wednesday. Be ready. We'll be ready, she almost shouts. Oh my God, I'll pack the Nerf guns. The R list is growing. This isn't just revenge anymore. It's a rescue. I'm transforming this cold act of personal revenge into an act of communal care. I call Ben, my old college friend, who believed in this project so much he quit his tech job to become my studio manager. He's the only one who knows the truth. Ben, I say, pivot. We're not opening in the spring. He's silent. We're opening Wednesday. We're having a party. The guest houses aren't. They will be. I need you to get them ready. We're expecting about 30 people. I hear him whistle. 30 who? The unpresentables, I say. The disruptive. The hobbies. I'll send you the list. Spare no expense. This is the new rule. This is my declaration of personal freedom. I'm not just paying, I'm providing. This is not about impressing people. It's about honoring them. I spend the next hour on logistics. First-class tickets for Mrs. Petrov, who I know hasn't been on a plane in a decade. Black SUVs for Maya's family and Uncle Leo. This isn't about showing off wealth. It's about using it to erase the very friction and exclusion my family prizes. Next, the proof. I need a feast, not a dainty, polite, classy meal. I call Chef Anya, a local legend, whose farm-to-table restaurant is booked a year in advance. I tell her my story. She's quiet for a moment. I hate those kinds of people, she finally says. I'll be there. What's the theme? Abundance, I say. I want it to feel like a harvest. I want it to be overwhelming. Done, she says. Abundance is my specialty. Finally, the witness. I open Instagram and pull up the profile of Maria, a young, brilliant local photographer whose work is all shadow and light and raw, candid truth. I call her. Maria, it's Emily Carter from the Foundry. I'm hosting a Thanksgiving dinner, but I don't want event photography. What do you want? She asks, her voice curious. The truth, I say. No posed shots. I want to capture the feeling, the moment they walk in, the look on their faces when they realize they're not just allowed here, they're celebrated. I want the proof. I'm in, she says instantly. That's the only story worth telling. I hang up, my heart pounding with a fierce, clean energy. I'm not just building a party. I'm building a community, a family from the pieces my original one threw away. I'm building a world where authenticity matters more than status. My phone buzzes. A new text message. The name on the screen makes my stomach clench. Jess. I open it. Hey, Em. Mom told me you're not coming. Sorry about that. This is just a really important weekend for David. You get it. Hope you're not too lonely. The winking emoji, the casual condescending pity, the assumption that I'd be alone, a sad little hobbyist while they toasted their high-status life. That little emoji is the final sharp twist of the knife. It's the final straw. My fingers are cold as I type a reply. I'll be fine, Jess. Have a great weekend. I hit send. My face feels like it's been carved from stone. I stare at the winking emoji. Hope you're not too lonely. The condescension is so thick, I could choke on it, the casual pity, a final sharp twist of the knife. It solidifies everything. I don't reply. I simply press and hold the family group chat, Carter Family Updates, and hit mute. A digital door slams shut. They can shout into the void. I have work to do. Hope you're not too lonely. I mutter, a cold smile touching my lips. You have no idea. The next 48 hours are a blur of controlled, beautiful chaos. Ben is a miracle, a logistics wizard. He turns the empty, austere guest houses, which were just shells last week, into warm, welcoming suites, commissioning fireplaces to be lit, stocking fridges with local cider and cheese. Chef Anya arrives with a small, focused team, and they wheel in crates of fresh produce from local farms. She walks into the professional-grade kitchen I'd built adjacent to the grand hall, stops, and just spins in a slow circle, her eyes wide. My God, she says, running a hand over the massive soapstone counter. This isn't a kitchen, this is a temple. Maria, the photographer, arrives just after, her cameras strapped to her like a tactical vest. She doesn't say a word at first. She just walks the space, watching the way the afternoon light cuts through the high, dusty windows, her expression one of deep concentration. The contrast, she murmurs, aiming her lens at the rough 19th century brick against a new 20-foot plate glass window. The old iron and your new glass. This place is the story, isn't it? I spend the morning in my office not on logistics, but on the details. This isn't just about a party. It's an antidote. I'm curating personalized gifts, each one a celebration of the very hobby or flaw my family despised. For Uncle Leo, I wrap a thick leather-bound journal, the kind that smells like history, and a bottle of 25-year-old single malt scotch, the kind my father would deem wasteful for a man who works with his hands. I write a simple tag, for the unclassy stories. We want to hear them all, for Mrs. Petrov. I uncase the set of Venetian glass-blowing tools I'd imported last year, tools she'd once shown me in a textbook, her voice full of reverence, calling them the dream. For Maya's kids, this is my favorite part. I go to the media room, a soundproofed haven I'd built for myself. Ben has stocked it perfectly, VR gear, massive beanbag chairs, every art supply imaginable, and a full-size, old-fashioned popcorn machine, the kettle already heating and filling the air with the smell of toasted corn. I take a can of red paint, and on a large piece of primed wood, I paint a sign myself. I nail it to the door, loud is welcome here. I stand in the grand hall as Ben and Anya's team move around me. This isn't about showing them I'm rich. This is about showing them how wealth should be used. My family uses it as a wall, a filter, a way to impress senior partners and keep the unpresentables out. I'm using it as a door. I'm using it to create joy, to honor the people who were there before the money, to build a community based on passion, not status. This is my personal freedom. This is the real art. By Wednesday night, the foundry is transformed. It's unrecognizable. The massive hearth is a roaring column of fire, casting dancing shadows on the 60-foot iron trusses above. The 30-foot oak table is set. Not with the cold, fragile china my mother prizes, but with heavy, beautiful handmade ceramic plates from a local potter I admire, each one unique. The centerpieces aren't fussy dyeing floral arrangements. They are my own sculptures, large illuminated glass orbs and spires that glow from within, casting warm cobalt and amber light across the table. The room looks like a living painting, a feast hall from some forgotten beautiful legend. Then I hear it. The crunch of gravel on the long drive. The first car. I feel a nervous jolt, but it's excitement, not fear. I walk to the massive arched doorway. The first black SUV pulls up. The driver opens the door and out steps Uncle Leo. He's wearing a clean flannel shirt, jeans, and his work boots, which I can tell he tried to polish. He looks hesitant, holding his old canvas duffel bag. He steps onto the flagstone path, looks up at the towering brick facade, at the massive windows glowing with firelight, at the sheer impossible scale of the restored foundry, and he just stops. His cigar, unlit, falls from his open mouth. He looks from the soaring roofline to the restored smokestack, then back to me standing in the doorway. Holy hell, he whispers. The man whose voice usually shakes the windows. He whispers, I thought you said you had a studio. This ain't a studio, this is a cathedral. A real warm smile breaks across my face, the first one in days. The tension, the anger, it all melts, replaced by a simple, profound joy. Welcome to the Foundry, Uncle Leo, I say, walking out to hug him. You're the first one here. As I grab his bag, 2 more sets of headlights appear, cutting sharp, bright lines through the dark Berkshire woods, turning onto my drive. They're here. The headlights cut through the dark, one after another, a procession of warm cars arriving at my door. The Foundry comes alive. The next SUV pulls up and Ben is there to open the door, offering an arm to Mrs. Petrov. She steps out, frail and small, in her best winter coat, clutching her purse. Emily, she says, her voice thin as paper, as she looks up at the towering illuminated brickwork. Oh, my dear girl. What have you done? I just smile, taking her other arm. I built the studio you always talked about, Mrs. P. I lead her past the warm glow of the grand hall, straight into the hot shop. She steps inside. She sees it all. The state-of-the-art 4,000-pound furnace purring in the corner. The gleaming rows of annealing ovens. The racks of German blowpipes and Italian shears. Her hand, thin and spotted with age, flies to her mouth. She doesn't just tear up. She cries. Deep, silent, shoulder-shaking sobs that rack her small frame. It's the studio I dreamed of my whole life. She whispers, her fingers tracing the cool, smooth steel of a new Marver. The one I sketched in my journals. And you built it. A joyful commotion erupts from the main door. Maya bursts in a whirlwind of snow and energy, her 3 kids trailing behind her like ducklings. They stop dead just inside the massive archway, paralyzed by the scale of the grand hall, the roaring fire, the glowing glass. The 6-year-old Mia whispers, Mommy, is this a museum? Are we gonna get in trouble? Maya reflexively hisses, Mia, shh. No, I say, my voice cutting through the hall. I walk over and kneel so I'm eye level with them. It's not a museum, and you can't get in trouble. I point down the hall to the media room. See that door? The one with the red sign? The kids nod, their eyes wide. Go read it, I say, out loud. The oldest boy, Sam, squints. Loud is welcome. Here. Their faces change. It's a slow dawning wave of disbelief, then pure, unadulterated ecstasy. Really? Maya asks, her voice tight. Really? I say. Go. Be disruptive. It's a stampede. They scream, a high-pitched, joyous sound of pure, liberated energy and thunder down the hall, throwing the media room door open. A moment later, the thump, thump, thump of the popcorn machine kicks in, followed by a shriek of laughter. Maya looks at me, tears streaming down her face. No one, she says, her voice thick, has ever told them to be louder. An hour later, the grand hall is thrumming. It's full. 30 people. My R list. The air is thick with the smell of applewood smoke and roasting garlic, the sound of Uncle Leo's booming laughter, and the happy muffled shrieks from the media room. I stand at the head of the long oak table, my hands still faintly smudged with soot gripping the edge. I tap a glass. The room quiets. 30 faces, my real family, turn to me, their eyes shining in the warm golden light of my glass sculptures. My heart is hammering. I find my voice. Welcome, I say. Welcome to the Foundry. I clear my throat. They say a home is a place where when you go there, they have to take you in. I think a home is a place where they want to. A place where you don't have to be presentable to get a seat at the table. A place where you don't have to be quiet or clean or practical. I look from Uncle Leo to Mrs. Petrov to Maya. This Thanksgiving, we're not toasting to status or senior partners. We're toasting to each other, to the unpresentables, to the hobbies, to the disruptive and the loud. Welcome home. To the hobbies! Leo bellows, raising his glass of Scotch high. The room roars. The feast begins, and it is an event. Chef Anya's food is an act of defiant abundance, not the dainty, polite, classy portions of my mother's world. This is robust. This is real. Platters groan under the weight of two massive smoked turkeys, a cider-braised pork roast that falls apart at the touch of a fork, massive rough-hewn wooden bowls of roasted vegetables glazed with honey and thyme. It's a harvest. It's a statement. And Maria the photographer is a ghost. She's everywhere and nowhere, her lens capturing everything. Not the stiff-posed group shots my mother loves, but the truth. I see her capture the exact moment Uncle Leo throws his head back and roars with laughter. I see her zoom in on Mrs. Petrov's aged hands as she holds her new Venetian tools to the light, her face a perfect mask of joy. She even captures a shot through the media room door, Maya's kids fast asleep in a heap on the beanbag chairs, their faces streaked with chocolate. The guests are overwhelmed, grateful. Their phones are out. Uncle Leo posts a selfie with me, the roaring fire behind us. His caption, "My niece Emily Carter decided the A-list was boring, so she started her own. This is the R list, the real list. #Foundry Thanksgiving, #real family." Maya posts one of Maria's stunning professional shots of the "loud is welcome here" sign. Her caption, "First time my kids have been told to be louder. Thank you, Emily. You built a sanctuary, #disruptive and proud." Then Quiet Ben posts a picture he took earlier, me silhouetted against the 2,000-degree roar of the furnace. His caption, "This is what happens when you tell an artist her dream is just a hobby. She builds an empire of glass and steel. So proud of you, Em." The posts are tagged. They're public. They're spreading. My phone, which I'd unmuted and left on the table, suddenly lights up. A text notification from Jess. Then another. Then a call from Mom. It stops. Then a call from Dad. I ignore it. Then it starts again. Jess, Mom, Jess, Mom, Mom, Dad. The phone begins to vibrate so violently with the cascade of incoming calls that it skitters across the polished oak, rattling against the base of my wine glass with a high, frantic, angry sound. The phone on the table is an alien object, a shrieking, vibrating intrusion in the warm bubble of the grand hall. The screen is a strobe light of incoming calls. Mom. Dad. Jess. Back to Mom. It rattles against the handmade ceramic plate, a frantic, angry sound. The laughter in the room is so loud, the joy so thick that no one else notices. I do. I pick up the phone, the screen flashing Mom again. "Excuse me," I say to Mrs. Petrov, who is deep in conversation with Uncle Leo about the structural integrity of the hearth. I walk away from the warmth from the firelight and the smell of smoked turkey and mulled cider. I push open the heavy, soundproofed steel door that separates the grand hall from the cold shop. The change is instant. The wall of laughter and booming voices is cut off, reduced to a faint, muffled vibration in the floor. Here it is, cold, dark, and silent, save for the low electrical hum of the annealing ovens. This is where my finished pieces rest, cooling on long metal racks, their shapes like sleeping ghosts in the gloom. The phone rings again, the sound obscene in the sterile quiet. I lean my back against a cool steel rack. I take a breath. I press accept. Her voice is a shriek. Not a word, just a high, thin sound of pure panic. "Emily, what is this? What is going on? Where are you?" "I'm at home, Mom," I say. My voice is quiet, and the contrast with her hysteria makes it sound even colder. "What is this place?" "Your Uncle Leo. He's posting pictures. Pictures, Emily. From some palace Maya. She posted about being loud. What have you done?" "I'm hosting Thanksgiving, Mom. At my home. It's called the Foundry." "Your home," she screeches. "We're at the club. We are at the country club. David's partners are here. They're they're seeing these posts. They're looking at their phones. Maya's post. Disruptive and proud. It looks like you're throwing a rival party. You're trying to humiliate us. I hear a muffled, "Give me the phone, Sarah." The sound fumbles, and then my father's voice is in my ear. It's not a shriek. It's a low, furious, controlled growl, the voice he uses to fire people. "Emily, what is this? Stop it. Tell them to take those pictures down, now." "I can't do that, Dad. Don't play games with me. What is this place? How did you, how did you pay for this circus? Did you borrow money? Are you in debt?" The hope in his voice is naked. The desperate, eager wish that this is all a fraud, a house of cards he can blow down with a single puff of his disappointment. He needs me to be a failure. "No, Dad," I say, my voice still quiet. "I'm not in debt. It's all paid for." "How?" he barks. "How that hobby of yours, that dirty shed? Don't lie to me, Emily." I close my eyes. I picture him standing in the sterile beige hallway of the country club, his face purple. "The hobby, Dad," I say the words perfectly spaced, perfectly clear, "is a $4.2 million commission I received from Antoine Dubois for an installation. The hobby is a 3-year exclusive contract for his new hotel in Dubai. The hobby is the reason I have this house, this foundry, and this life. While you're standing in a hallway trying to impress men who don't matter, while my real family is in my dining room having the time of their lives." Dead. Silence. A profound, static-filled vacuum. The only sound in the cold shop is a faint, high-pitched tink-tink-tink from the digital controller on the nearest annealer as it begins its next cooling cycle. It is the sound of his entire world, his entire system of value cracking down the middle. I hear a fumbling, a clumsy hand badly covering the receiver, and then I hear his voice, not a roar, but a strangled, choked whisper to my mother. "Sarah, 4 million. She said, 4 million. He comes back on the line, but the CEO is gone. The rage is back, but it's a different kind. It's not the anger of dominance. It's the spitting, venomous, impotent rage of a man who has been wrong. You lied to us. You kept this a secret, all this time sitting on that. You did this to ambush us, to make us look like fools. No, Dad." My voice is ice. "You didn't ask. You told me it was a hobby. You told me it was a waste. You told me to be practical like Jess. You were so busy looking at her success, you didn't even bother to look at me. This isn't an ambush." I pause, then deliver the final clean cut. "This is just my life, the one you weren't invited to." The silence that follows is heavy, broken only by his ragged breathing. "Goodbye, Dad," I say softly. "I have guests." I press the red icon. I end the call. I stand in the cold, quiet dark, my hand resting on a finished sculpture, a smooth, cool vortex of glass. The steel door muffles the party, but I can feel the bass of the music, the vibration of joy. I walk back and push the door open. The wall of warmth and laughter hits me. Uncle Leo is holding one of my glass awards, pretending it's the Stanley Cup. Mrs. Petrov is laughing so hard she's wiping her eyes. The phone in my hand rings again, shrill and insistent. The screen flashes Jess. I look at the name. I press decline. I walk past the table, past my cheering, happy, unpresentable family, to a workbench where a large galvanized bucket of water sits for cooling hot tools. I look at the black, ringing screen one last time. Then I silence it, turn it over, and drop it into the water. A small, definitive splash. I am done. The next morning the foundry is quiet, but it's a quiet I've never heard before. Not the vast, echoing silence of my solitude, but a warm, sated silence, the sound of a house sleeping off a great victory. The grand hall is filled with the buttery smell of old wood smoke and stale wine, littered with the beautiful, happy wreckage of the feast, empty bottles, rumpled napkins, and my glowing glass sculptures still lit like embers from the night before. One by one, my R list departs. Uncle Leo grips me in a hug that cracks my ribs. "You call me M," he says, his voice thick. "Anytime. You're the new head of this family, you know that." Maya's kids, sleepy and smeared with residual chocolate, all hug my knees. Mrs. Petrov, however, is not leaving. She's sitting at the massive table sipping tea, a queen surveying her new domain. "I'm staying for the week," she'd announced. "I am not letting you run these new furnaces without proper supervision. Someone has to advise." Her presence is a solid, comforting anchor. The house, even as it empties, finally feels full. I walk over to the workbench by the cooling tools. My phone is still at the bottom of the galvanized bucket of water, a dark, silent rectangle. I reach my hand into the icy water, my knuckles grazing the metal, and pull it out. It feels like pulling a black box from a shipwreck. I dry it on a rag, the coarse cotton catching on my calluses. I hold the power button. The screen flickers, then bursts to life, a digital graveyard. 28 missed calls, 42 text messages, a timeline of their panic, a cascading log of their world tilting off its axis. I open the thread. The longest one, a series of rapid-fire texts, is from Jess, sent at 3:14 a.m. "M, I can't sleep. Mom is a wreck. Dad, I've never seen him like that. He just sat in his chair and stared. He didn't even talk. The pictures are... It's not a house, Em. It's something else. I saw the one of you by the furnace, the one Ben posted. That's who you are. I have to say this. I'm jealous. I've always been jealous of you. You got to be the creative one. You got to fail. I had to be perfect. I had to. I did everything they wanted. I went to the right school, got the right job, married the right man, and I'm miserable, Em. I'm so unhappy. You did everything you wanted, you fought them, and you won. You built that. It's real. I'm sorry. Not just for this. For all of it. I was a coward." I read the stream of messages, and the cold, hard shield I'd built around my heart cracks. This is the first honest thing my sister has ever said to me. It's not an excuse. It's a confession. For the first time, I see her not as my perfect rival, but as their other victim. The successful experiment, just as trapped as I was, only in a cleaner cage. My fingers steady type a reply. "Thank you for saying that. We have a lot to talk about, but not now." A boundary, but one with a hinge. I scroll up. My mother's message sent an hour after Jess's. I was wrong. I was just so proud of Jess, and I wanted to... I don't know what I wanted. "I'm so sorry, Emily. Your grandmother would be ashamed of me. Can we come see it? The foundry is beautiful." The apology is there, but it's hopelessly tangled in the request. She's sorry because I'm successful. She's sorry because the house is beautiful. And she wants to see it. Then my father's. A separate terse thread. 4 words sent at 6 a.m. just as the sun was rising. "I am proud of you." I stare at them. The 4 words I have been chasing my entire life. The validation I would have traded my soul for 5 years ago. The words that would have saved me. I wait for the wash of relief, the warmth, the feeling of finally arriving. Nothing. It's just ash. The words are hollow. They are not for me, the girl in the dirty garage pleading for $5,000. They are for the 4.2 million. They are for Antoine Dubois. They are for the foundry. I realize with a profound, quiet, and bottomless sorrow that I am not that girl anymore. I am not the kid holding up a drawing. I am the woman who built the wall it hangs on. I don't need his pride. It's worthless because it arrived too late. My self-worth is no longer on his balance sheet. My phone buzzes in my hand. A new text from Mom. "Please, Emily, we just want to talk. Just the family." I look across the hall at Mrs. Petrov, who is watching me, her gaze sharp and knowing. "They want to come visit," I say, my voice flat. "Of course they do," she says, setting her teacup down with a soft click. They want to see the new center of power. They want to pay their respects to the new queen. I'm not going to let them, I say, the anger flaring again. I'm not giving them a tour. It's not a prize for them to inspect. Don't be a fool, child, she says, her voice suddenly sharp as glass. Of course you'll let them. An artist is always in control of her studio. This is your studio, Emily. They don't get to wander in. They don't get to touch the art. You set the rules of entry. You let them in on your terms or not at all. That is the test. Not for them. For you. Her words slice through my anger, replacing it with cold clarity. She's right. This isn't about walling them out. This is about defining the door. I open a new group text to Mom, Dad, and Jess. My thumb hovers. I am no longer the unpresentable daughter. I am the host. I am the founder. I am the one with the keys. I type. You can come for dinner. Saturday. Just us. But there are rules. Saturday night. The foundry is unrecognizable from the feast. The grand hall is silent, vast and cold. I had Ben and his team remove the long 30-foot oak table, the symbol of abundance. In its place, lost in the middle of the cavernous stone floor, sits a small, simple, round wooden table, my own kitchen table. It's set with 4 of the plainest ceramic plates I own. The massive hearth, which had roared with life, now holds only a low, flickering fire that does more to create shadows than warmth. The air is still. The house is not a sanctuary tonight. It's a courtroom. I hear the crunch of tires on the gravel. I don't move from my position, standing in the shadows by the cold shop door. The doorbell doesn't ring. They must have knocked because Ben opens the door. They step inside. My father Mark, my mother Sarah, my sister Jess. They are dressed down as if for a funeral. No pearls, no blazers, just dark, simple, nervous clothes. They stop just inside the archway, a tight, frightened cluster. They look small. They stare up at the 60-foot iron trusses in the ceiling, at the sheer, imposing scale of the silence. They are intimidated. This is not my father's country club. This is not my mother's curated living room. They are in my space, and they feel for the first time like the unpresentable ones. Emily. My mother says, her voice a small thin sound that the shadows swallow instantly. I step forward into the low light. Sit down. They move stiffly, their footsteps echoing on the polished concrete. They take their seats at the tiny table, which looks absurd, like a piece of doll furniture in a giant's hall. A simple catered meal is served by a single quiet server from Ben's team. Roasted chicken, a simple salad. We eat in a silence so heavy it's a physical weight. The only sound is the click of silverware on the plain plates. My father clears his throat, the old familiar sound of him preparing to take control of a room. Emily. He starts his voice, attempting a jovial boardroom tone that fails instantly. This place, it really is. I mean the stonework alone. Stop. My voice is not loud, but it cuts through the hall like glass. They freeze. My father's mouth hangs open. We're not here to talk about the house, I say, placing my fork and knife carefully on my plate. We're not here to talk about the stonework or the money. We're here to talk about the truth. Jess flinches, staring down at her hands. My mother's face is pale ashen. You're sorry now, I continue, my voice level, cold and clear. But I need to know you understand why. I stand up. They watch me, mesmerized like mice watching a hawk. Come with me. I don't wait for a reply. I turn and walk out of the grand hall, through the cold shop and into my personal studio. They follow, a silent, shuffling procession. I hit a single switch on the wall. A bank of spotlights fires up, not illuminating the whole studio, but focusing a single harsh, theatrical cone of light in the very center of the room. There, on a simple steel pedestal, sits a sculpture. It's the first thing I made after my father's phone call. The frozen heart. A block of clear, jagged glass, seemingly solid but fractured from within by 1,000 internal glittering breaks. This, I say, my voice echoing in the studio. This is what you did. I run my fingers over its sharp, cold edge. This is the hobby. This is the dirty path. This is the waste. This is the $5,000 I begged for. This is the truth. And this, I say tapping the glass, is the sculpture that Antoine Dubois saw. This is what I built my empire on. My mother makes a small, strangled sound. She steps closer, as if drawn by a magnet, her hand outstretched. She sees it, the pain, the rage, the fractured hope all captured in the glass. She sees it, and she breaks. Not the performative tears of the country club, but a raw, gut-wrenching sob that tears out of her. Oh God, she weeps, her hand flying to her mouth. Emily, I didn't see it. I never saw it. My father just stares at the sculpture, his mask of practiced corporate control finally crumbling. His face, for the first time in my life, looks ashamed. Jess is crying silently, tears tracking through the makeup she'd carefully applied. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I say, my voice softer now, but no less firm. I'm doing this so you understand. The Foundry is my home, and my home is a place for people who see. I look at them, their broken, miserable faces. Like Mrs. Petrov, like Uncle Leo, like Ben. People who saw the work when it was just a dirty, failing hobby in a garage. People who saw me when I had nothing. They see the work, not just the status. They are my family. I turn back to the three of them, the family of my blood. You are welcome here. My mother's head snaps up, her eyes wide with a desperate, pathetic hope. But the price of admission, I continue letting the words land hard and clear, is that you see me, not the money, not the house, not the success, me. And you must respect the people I love. My real family, all of them. The disruptive ones, the unclassy ones. They have a permanent seat at my table. If you can do that, the door is open. If you can't, it will close, and it will never open again. It is not forgiveness. It is not a happy blended family. It is a start. It is a boundary drawn in steel and glass. My father, the practical man, the man of numbers and success, looks at the cracked glass heart. He looks at me, the artisan, the provider, the one who built the furnace that lights the room. He can't speak, but for the first time in his life, he nods. Just once. A sharp, defeated, total acknowledgement. My mother, still weeping, nods. Jess just says, "Yes, Em, yes." I stand there in my studio, the room I built with my own hands. The furnace, my true hearth, is running low in the corner, its deep orange glow a living, breathing presence. I am not the shadow. I am not the unpresentable daughter. I am the source of the light. I am in control. As Emily Carter stood in her studio, finally in control, she closed a painful chapter and began a new one. What did you think of her journey from hobbyist to the head of the table? We truly read every single one of your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more. Thank you for listening. This has been a story from Radiance. We'll see you next time.